Alright, now we're going to do some strafing and rocket practice with the Hawk. Before we do that, we got to set up the plane so it's able to fire the rockets. We are currently carrying 2 rocket pods, one under each wing, and of course the gun under the belly. So I'm going to turn on the master arm by right-clicking here, and then right-clicking again. Master arm is on, we have gunsight. Over here, we're going to turn on the gun. Easy enough to do. We're going to apply power to the left and right pylons. This we're not going to worry about right now because we're not carrying bombs. And here we set what type of weapon we're using. Off, RP for rocket pod, PB for practice bomb, and B for bomb. So RP is what we have. One setting of flaps, wheel brakes, full throttle, and I'm going to release them at about 80% RPM right about here. So we're going to talk about the gun sight here first. Retract the wheels, flaps up. Okay, so we notice the gun sight it's kind of split into 2 parts. It's kind of 2 sights in one, similar to what we have in the P51 when you've got both on at once. We have a fixed reticle. You can see that horizontal bar on the top with a dot in the center and the inverted T below. Those are fixed and do not move. The circle, like its operator, is disturbed, which means that it moves kind of within the gun sight as the, kind of as a result of the airplane moving around. I don't know how that works exactly yet. I know how it works in the Mustang, but here I'm not quite sure. I've just been using the fixed gun sight, which for ground attack works pretty well. Alright, so some things here. Using rockets in the Hawk, first off, these rockets actually travel quite fast. They have a high projectile speed, which means that loss of accuracy due to rocket drop, projectile drop, when firing closer to like a shallow dive angle, closer to horizontal, is actually minimized, which is good. Which means it's easier to use. You just kind of, most of the time, can get by with just putting the pipper on the target and firing, usually. The second thing is that unlike CCIP mode, which you may be used to in the A10, it's not a case where you put the gun sight on the target and fire and as quickly as you can as kind of a jerk reaction. It's not that at all. Shooting rockets in the Hawk and the gun pod as well is much more like shooting a rifle in real life, where you want to get a stable, solid, consistent picture that is dead on the target as you can possibly be, even knowing that there's always going to be some motion there. You get it as good as you can get it, and keep your flight path as solid as it can be, as straight as it can be, stabilized, and then fire. And that's complicated by the fact, kind of emphasized by the fact that the Hawk has a peculiar trigger where if you press, the rockets don't fire the instant you hit the button. You have to press and hold for about half a second, which means that your flight path has to be quite stable to be on the same path when the rocket leaves the pod as it was when you hit the button. Otherwise, your shot's going to go where you didn't want it to. Still, if you can dive on the target, so much the better. I think it probably increases your stability a bit. I like to fire when I get pretty close to minimize dispersion. So I'm just going to kind of pick a truck and go for it here. So diving helps, but it's less critical than it might be in something with a heavier, slower rocket like the P51. So I'm going to chop my throttle back to, it feels like about 50%, and I'm going to go for that truck right here. And it also helps too to have your wings as level as possible, or the rockets go kind of weird, wiggity whack. You can see my sights like all over the place here. Too high. These rockets also have a very small warhead. They will kill a truck, but you do have to hit it directly on the truck, otherwise it's just gonna laugh at you as you pull away. Looks like I hit it with the last rocket there. Notice, even as, I wasn't entirely as stable as I wanted to be, and the rockets consequently dispersed all over the place, and I only hit it with 1 out of 4. And it is possible with enough practice. I was having some success earlier today, If you just want to use one rocket pod instead of two, you can bullseye these things. They're fairly accurate, but it does require that you fly a rock-solid flight path. Another thing too, when you press and hold, it fires two rockets, 1-1, or 1-2, just like it did there. Now, if you only want to fire one rocket, you can just release it after the left rocket pod fires, and you'll get that effect. Then if you want to balance things out, you can shut off the left pylon and fire only from the right. It's all up to you, of course. Whatever you feel like doing. Boom, got it. Now you can only carry two rocket pods as far as I know, and this is not what you would call a combat monster jet. This is a jet designed to force you. It's easy to fly. It goes where you want it to, but to fly it precisely enough to make a manual, like a reliable manual rocket pod solution, you have to be on the ball, literally. And have absolute control over your aircraft. And this plane will teach you how to do that. The L-39 will as well, so, you know, whichever your preference may be. I'm going to attack those two because it looks like I might have a good chance of hitting both in one pass. A little low on that one. But I did get both trucks. Now, they're not laser beams. They do have a bit of dispersion to them, so you'll have to mess with your dive angle, jockey the throttle a little bit. You know, I find it's much more important to stabilize that sight picture. In this mission, I haven't really, so far, had much success having that rock-solid flight path yet. Let's see what we can do on this pass. Much better. So I had my throttle set at what, about 85%. My airspeed was around 250 or so. Now, if you want to be a little more formal about this and, you know, attack from a certain altitude above ground level at a certain airspeed with a certain dive angle, that's fantastic. And that's what you have to do to get an accurate bomb delivery, and we'll get to that. Overkill. Okay, so I fired one extra rocket on the left. So I'm going to balance things out. I'm going to shut that left rocket pod on and use a single rocket from the right. Being very nitpicky, of course. I don't think it really matters that much as far as balancing the aircraft. You notice that attack run, I was a little better at keeping the sight picture from bouncing all over the place. It reminds me, even though it's a different skill and you're using different motor skills and whatnot, it reminds me very much of shooting a rifle. Of course, this rifle is moving, but... Nope. If you want to extend your time on target, give yourself an extra challenge, you can shut off the rocket pod you don't want to use and just fire one at a time. Of course, accuracy, your probability of hit will get cut about in half. But your skill will go up, and you'll have more passes per target to get a little more practice in. Nope, that was just horrible. Wondering what I did wrong there. Looks like the rockets dispersed quite a bit, and they went above my my bore sight there. Looked like a fairly stable picture. I was just probably pointing too high or going too fast or something. That looks better. Alright, not that bad. I don't know, I haven't been keeping track of how many rockets I have, so I'm going to be doing a dry run here soon. I'm going to go to fire, nothing's going to happen. Then we'll switch to the gun. The gun works very similarly. That's going to be a go-around. You use the same part of the gun sight, but what I've noticed with the gun is that it does tend to shoot higher. It shoots up here, so imagine another little dot right about there, and that's where we try to put the target. So we put that little horizontal slash beneath the truck and strafe it. It seems to do pretty okay. I don't know if that's how the actual aircraft is. It does seem kind of strange to have a gun bore line not on the gun bore line sight, but it could be an effect of bullet rise and drop and stuff like that. If you've ever fired especially a rifle, you don't have to worry about it so much with a pistol, but with a rifle, hang on, I'll explain that after we get these rockets empty here. There's a horrible dive. Oops, and a horrible shot. Two horrible shots. That was all over the place. See how because my dive wasn't stabilized, my rockets went, wiggity whack. Didn't hit what I was shooting at. So you can see how this will help you kind of perfect that fine control. It's good practice. Nope. And I'm dry. Rockets out. No more rockets left. So we're going to hit this lovely jettison button. Lose the pods. Shut off the power to the pylons, which you don't really need to do. Doesn't matter too much, but. And we're going with the gun. Okay, so you guys probably already know this, but bullets do not travel a straight line. Far from it. And in fact, the gun sight that you're looking through doesn't show a line parallel to the path of the bullet because the path of the bullet is not a straight line. Your gun bore line is. So imagine a line between your eyeball and this gun sight shooting straight out into infinity. It's like a laser beam, right? Now, the bullets don't travel that, so if you want to look at the airplane from the side, see the gun pod underneath the aircraft, right? Now, imagine that was firing right now. The bullets would kind of, you know, they travel in an arc kind of upwards through the gun bore line that you imagine from your eyeball through the gun sight. At a certain range, they're designed to converge, and then the bullet goes up through the air, and then gravity takes over and pulls it back down through the gun bore line and into the ground. And that's assuming you're flying straight and level. And that's how it works with a rifle. You know, the sight is only accurate at 2 ranges. You know, it's accurate at usually 25 yards. They usually use 25 and 100. But so like the bullet goes up through the gun bore line at 25 yards, it goes up above it between 25 and 100, and then descends back and strikes the gun bore line at 100 yards, typically. That's just kind of a rough estimate. But so if you're shooting, you need to know the range to target, which means, you know, if the target is between 25 and 100 yards, you need to point the sight a little lower than you want it to hit, and if it's beyond 100 yards, obviously you need to aim up. It gets kind of confusing sometimes. Now, gyro computing gun sights in aircraft since World War II have made all the calculations necessary to compensate for all this, in addition to the path the airplane is traveling, how many G's you're pulling, your roll, bullet drop, all that stuff. So basically, you just need to put the pipper on the target and squeeze the trigger. Now, I don't know that this disturbed gun sight takes all that stuff into account. I don't know what it does. I think it's probably more important for aerial targets than ones on the ground. For our purposes today, we're just going to be using this fixed one, and we're going to be putting our target right about here and seeing how many we can kill before we run out of our 4 or 5 bursts of gunfire. So I'm throw it back a bit. And it might be doing a little less stable gunnery here because I kind of hosed it a little bit. Kind of, yeah, here we go. About there. You see how most of those bullets flew well above the gun sight. And that's okay, because we know that. And just use some Kentucky windage and then kind of compensate for that, and then we'll be able to hit these ground targets. Now, trying to hit an aerial target with this thing, as we noticed when I was shooting that cargo plane a couple of missions ago, that was kind of a bitch. And I don't know if that's how the actual aircraft works, if that's how it's intended, or what. So this gun seems much more suited for strafing, in my opinion. You can see that's a slow projectile speed. Wow. I kind of start firing, and then as the burst proceeds, I kind of compensate for my error by moving the nose of the aircraft. I mean, it works, and because this gun fires in bursts, there's nothing to lose by doing that, really. All you need to do is strike the target once or twice, and it's not like you can shorten the burst by being more accurate. You just kind of start firing, compensate, and then the burst ends. So I fired 3 bursts at 2 targets. Let's see how many we get here. Now the Mirage has a very similar gun, but you do have the option in that aircraft anyway of making it a continuous fire as long as you hold down the trigger, as opposed to the burst fire we have here by default in the Hawk and by default in the Mirage. I hit it. No. It's a difficult gun. It seems like it has a very low projectile velocity, high bullet drop rate. So if you're out of range, even if you aim up above the target, they're just going to run out of juice and fall, kind of like artillery does. And, you know, you got to get real close to use it. Now it hits hard, but it doesn't hit frequently. But for ground targets here, as you can see, it's fairly straightforward and easy to use. Stabilize your picture, sort of, and then let it go. And that was all I got. Those little 3 bullets. Did I hit it? No! Okay, so now we're dry. Shut off the gun pod, master arm, off, Take out the key. And that's it. So, since we can always benefit for some practice, let's do an overhead pattern at the airfield here. Trim it up a little. Trim, trim, trim. All right. So, you know, if you're one of the many who look, our ADI here is out of calibration. If you're one of the many who is very critical of developers working on trainers and not full-fledged combat aircraft, well, first off, I assume you haven't gotten that far in this video anyway. But if you are, you know, that's fine. You're entitled to it, but I would strongly suggest, you know, considering what the trainers are there for. They're there to make you better. And in my opinion, they serve that purpose excellently. And in fact, I don't know why exactly, but they seem to do a better job of it than the combat aircraft do. And you can make the argument that, say, for example, the F-5 is very similar to the T-38 Talon, also a trainer, and you know, they're almost the same airframe exactly. Well, similar. My experience has been that I've learned faster in the trainers, and I think it's just they're designed to teach you things. They're simple. All you have to worry about in this aircraft most of the time is the task you've given yourself. Like in this mission, I am doing manual bombing. You know, so you're only focused on the bomb site itself. You're focused on your stick and rudder skills. You're focused on all the nuts and bolts kind of, and holding level, which I'm doing a bad job at here, but maintaining proper airspeed, also I'm doing a bad job at that. Let's go full flaps, a little bit of power to compensate. So if you value your own skill as a virtual pilot, to me, you owe it to yourself to at least consider one of the trainers. Maybe try a friend's module or something like that if you don't want to take the plunge and spend the money. I can understand that. You feel like you're getting less because you're spending, you know, the same price you would for a full-fledged fighter for something that by definition does less. But it's not about the plane in these trainers. It's about you getting better at things and, you know, engaging, you know, continuing that learning process that aviation represents. It's way too close, too high, too fast. This should be a go-around. So let's go around. Probably could have saved the landing, but it wouldn't have looked good. That little white dash right there appears to be your speed brake indicator. Alright, too high. As it happens, I've found a lot of just personal, pleasant virtual flying by just flying a traffic pattern. You wouldn't know it from my last landing attempt. That was horrible, but it's very pleasant, and you feel like you know, it kind of gives you more a good feel for your aircraft, and I recommend it. Gear down, flaps down one setting. Should drop my speed nicely. I'm gonna try and touch down around 120 or so. Myself more room to maneuver here. Extend my downwind leg a bit. Flaps full. Turning onto base. Sort of. And turning on a final. Come on, speed brake, do your thing. Maybe I was wrong about that speed brake indicator. Or I broke my brake because that doesn't seem to be doing anything. A little steep on that one. Nothing broken. But I'm not as aligned as I wanted to be. It's just kind of sloppy, busy talking and not focusing on, you know, my job here. Oh, those brakes are touchy. So I'm not going to go through a full, I'm not going to taxi all the way out to the damn actual taxiway. We're just going to do a little shutdown here. Let's see. And that's all there is to it. Alright, I hope that was beneficial for some of you at least, and good hunting out there. Let's see. Actually, before I sign off, let's see what kind of hits we scored. 4 trucks and a bunch of, well, 4 hit trucks hits. Excuse me, 4 trucks hit with a gun. It looks like one of them previously got hit with a rocket, you see, and didn't die. So we had to strafe it. Alright, good hunting. Alright, let's see what TacView thinks of us here. This is a Hawk, but TacView, I guess, doesn't have a 3D model of the Hawk aircraft, so we substitute an F5, which works for our purposes. Let's get this thing moving with some music. So you see the blast from the first two rockets. Okay, so the first two rockets didn't actually strike the truck, but they did register as hits. So you can see that the blast actually does strike them, it just doesn't do enough to actually kill them. You really have to nail it with that rocket dead on. That's why I love TAC View. You learn things like this. There's a whole world of stuff going on outside of your view. And TAC View will teach that to you. Oh, here's where I use the right rocket only here. So, one thing you can do if you're trying to teach yourself, which I hope you are, we all should be doing that, is watch in TAC View, watch this little line right here. When I'm talking about stabilizing your flight path, that'll show you, especially at longer ranges like this, it'll show you when you're not doing that, this thing will be all wobbly. The more wobbly, the less accurate you're going to be. Excuse me. Alright, so you get the idea on these rocket runs here. Just gonna... Oh yeah, that's where I dump the pods because I'm empty. And we come back around for our gun run. Here's where I'm rambling about bullet trajectories, so let's skip ahead a little bit. Yeah, I kind of want to see that again, just to kind of take note of the trajectory of the bullets relative to the aircraft from the side to see what path they actually take, because I don't really know. So there's my GBL. Ah, so it looks like they do actually... Interesting. So I think maybe that sight we were using may be a little low. That doesn't matter. As long as it's consistent, as long as it's always in the same place, which it is, you can compensate for it. Like I said, Kentucky windage goes a long way. You just have to know in which direction and how much to use. See, yeah, let's check that out. Let's check that out, because that was... I aimed ahead, but watch these projectiles. They spurt out, and it looks like they have a lot of energy up to about here, and then they just kind of... They get pretty wussy, and they decide they don't want to fly anymore. Kaboom. See how sudden that is? Here, check this out. Let's get some useful data here. Which truck was that I got? I want to see what the range was before they dropped off. No, not that one. Not that one. There we go. So it looks like bullet drops out at about 4,500 feet, roughly. So if you fire within 3,000 feet, you're going to be doing pretty well. Okay, that might help a little bit. It's kind of a ballpark figure, but... Yeah, it looks like somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000 feet, the bullets start losing energy, and at 4,500 they're heading for the ground. Ballpark, of course. So, looks like I hit it, I just didn't hit it hard enough. And then we come out here, I fly a horrible pattern, go around, and land it. Alright, I hope that was useful for you guys. And again, good hunting out there. And if you have any requests or concerns, insults, whatever you got, lay me, lay them on me. Anyway, later.